Hey, John.
Hey, Eric. How you doing tonight?
Good. I survived. I made it back.
You
I'm
survived.
uh,
That
I'm
is
feeling pretty good, actually.
good. Good. Um, white knuckle driving.
Yes. Yeah. So went out, picked up daughter number one from school, and on the way home got stuck in a snowstorm. It wasn't like the snow wasn't super bad. I mean, it wasn't whiteout conditions,
Okay.
but it was 20 in the 20s, and it was steady snow, and the roads iced over super fast.
Oh
And
yeah.
uh, pretty quickly we were driving on an ice rink for a couple 100 miles, which was
Oh
very
my
unpleasant.
gosh. Couple hundred
But
miles.
yeah, 30 miles an hour, a couple 100 miles, 30 to 40, depending. Yeah. And we got a little bit of a late start, so it was dark. We saw the weather and I was like, oh, let's just be through that before it gets dark. No, we hit it right about as it was starting to get dark. So,
It gets dark early in December.
yeah. But we made it home a few hours later than originally planned, but all good. I got home, I think, Sunday night at a little after 11.
That's not terribly late, I guess. That's good. I
No.
mean, especially if you spent, if you went, a couple hundred miles going 30 miles an hour. Oof.
Yeah, no, it wasn't bad at all.
I'm glad you made it home safe though.
At one point, so I am always very suspicious when Google Maps or Apple Maps gives me the take this side road, don't take the freeway because there's an hour and a half delay in front of you. It's like, are you sure
Mm-hmm.
that's an hour and a half delay? But I risked it. And it was snowing by that point. And I'm like, all right, I will trust you. This was before it got dark. I will trust you, Google Maps. Well, Apple Maps told me first, and I said, I'm going to get a second opinion. And I loaded up Google Maps. And Google Maps told me the same thing. I'm like, all right. So we got off the road.
When the AIs agree.
Yeah. And we went around through back roads off the freeway in the middle of, near the border of Oregon and Idaho. And sure enough, after we had done it, there were just lines and lines of cars. And I called my boy and had him check traffic cameras and look at the news. And yeah, sure enough, there was a massive pileup that had shut down I-84 near the Idaho-Oregon border, which we snuck around and only added, 15 minutes. We had to get off and get gas at that point anyways, so
that is very
fortuitous.
Nice. I think that I am a small number for a big number in trusting it and then wishing that I had trusted it 10 minutes later when there's no way to turn around and you're stuck in
Yep.
There's a accident or something like that, and you're just sitting there for a half an hour, and you're like, oh, if I had only listened to the turn off here. It's the last turn off in a mile.
Yeah, because half the time, whatever the thing was that they're telling you to detour around has already been cleared up.
Yeah.
And so you just wasted time. But maybe it's getting smarter. Anyways. That probably would have added yet another hour to the trip on Sunday had we not listened to the AIs.
All right. Wise man.
Lucky. So that was my weekend. Lots and lots and lots of driving.
Podcasts?
Yes. I listened to a bunch of got caught up on my usual podcasts. Here's the thing coming back though, with daughter in the car. I now have the Apple One because we were using enough things anyways. I wasn't paying for Apple News, but now that I have Apple News, apparently Apple News, you can go into it on CarPlay and they have curated narrated news articles.
Oh,
so
really?
It's like it's someone just reads an article from, Vanity Fair or Washington Post or New York Times. Well, not New York Times, whatever papers that and magazines, long form articles. So we listened to long form articles. There was a bunch of articles on COVID. It was just kind of, we just hit play and it just kept cycling through all these stories in Apple News Plus.
And are they human read or are they AI read?
No. It basically a human comes on and says title of the article, who the byline is, and who the narrator is, which is him or herself. The narrated by, and they say their name, and then they just start right into the article.
Interesting.
It was, we pretty much listened to that on the way back. So I listened to podcasts, coming back, oddly, it was Apple News Plus or nothing. Silence especially was helpful at some of the white knuckle driving times.
I wonder if that's easy to get to just from a phone, because, I do not have CarPlay.
Yeah. If you go into Apple...
There must be a way.
Yeah, if you just launch the Apple News app...
That would be my first problem. Okay.
Yeah, you have to launch the Apple News app, and then there's one called Audio. And so it's Apple News Audio, and you can just hit play, and it just cycles through. They curate stories daily, and it's almost like one I just listened to was from Vanity Fair called "In Colbert We Trust," and it was a I don't know, expose is the wrong word. It was a long form article on how Stephen Colbert and the other late night comedians kind of saw COVID coming and started talking amongst themselves. How are we going to do this in a lockdown? How are we going to have our shows? And Colbert was one of the first ones to do it. And it talked about how, back in January, they were already planning on how to do this. And, they had how he had it set up in his house, and how there's a remote truck out in the driveway, and his kids, who are the only ones who could come in the house, acted like as the producers, and they had headsets in their ears listening to what the producers out in the van were trying to tell them, do this, no, the other red button.
That's awesome.
It was fun. I would totally, it's in your Apple News Plus if you ever load that up and listen to it. It's good.
Throw the link in the notes here too, and I'll put it in the notes for the show. Okay, that's cool. Well, let's see. I had one, I don't know, a couple things I was gonna complain / talk about in preparation for this. The the first is I'm bad. I've been bad these last couple years about doing a photo book. So I have tried for the last, I don't know, a lot of years. I noticed on Costco's website that 2013 was still up there. So maybe that was the first year, or maybe there were some before that. I make a photo book of the year from, basically from like December 15th from the previous year. So it includes kind of pictures at the beginning from Christmas from the previous year, and then this. And then I get 3 made. I get one for us, one for my mother-in-law, and then one for my parents. And but the last couple years I've been slow. I've been late, and I did. So I finished actually yesterday, and went to do it online, or actually do the orders, and it says December 28th through January 5th. So will be late. But my main complaint about this that I forgot last year, or I seem to remember that I was supposed to remember for this year, but I forgot because it's been a year, is when photos exports. So my mechanics on this are hypothetically throughout the year, but in reality at Thanksgiving and later, I am supposed to favorite my photos for the year. And then I will go through and I will create a smart album that says, time taken is after December 15th of the previous year, and it's a favorite, and that will create an album, and I can upload those to Costco and then make the photo book out of those. But in reality, it means that I'm sitting down and going, January 2020, here's the photos. We seem to take 250 to 300 photos a month. I know this. now. And I scan through, I favorite them, blah, 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 blah. But then when you export them and upload them, they're not in chronological order. And so when you're trying to make a photo book, and I'm not saying that photo 1 has to be strictly before photo 2, but roughly. And I have to remember for next year that I need to like do them by at least month. If I just do, January and then make a photo album on Costco that says January 2020 and February 2020, I will have 12 of them to go through, but I will at least not be scrolling past all the, Thanksgiving photos to get to the January photos and having them all over the place. It was seriously driving me insane. My cat has an opinion. Excuse me. Sorry.
That's all good. Yeah.
It is what it is. So, Anyway, let's see. Right. Should we get to the actual podcast topics?
Tell me about CRISPR.
All right. Yeah. I put one thing in follow up here because last year in episode 102, I think it was my Something Fun, was about the first patients that got a CRISPR gene edited for sickle cell anemia. And I saw this week that there was a follow up for the, about her in particular. Although now there are a number of others of, what's up, 18 months later. And it's really exciting because, after more than a year, let me see, I pulled out a couple of quotes here. So let's see, researchers reported the latest results from the first 10 patients treated via the technique, including Gray, who was the first one, 2 other sickle cell patients, and 7 with a related blood disorder. And so the comments are, all the patients have responded well. The only side effects have been from the intense chemotherapy that is part of the kind of preparatory process. And that analysis of the bone marrow cells from Gray 6 months after getting the treatment, and then again 6 months later, so 12 months after, showed the gene-edited cells. So this is where they use CRISPR to, replace the mutated cells, had persisted the full year. So that is an indication that it has permanently altered her DNA. She has the, I forgot what the thing was called, but basically the cells that are capable of producing correct red blood cells. So, it's a potential one-time therapy, could be a cure for life, is just amazing. And it says Gray and the other 2 sickle cell patients haven't had any complications for their disease, no pain attacks, no hospitalizations, and Gray has been able to wean off the powerful pain medications she needed most of her life. And previously, prior to the treatment, it says she experienced an average of 7 episodes a year. So, none. Anyway. That's my piece of follow-up. It's very exciting. Kind of fun follow-up.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. And related to the recommendation I had the other day, a couple of weeks ago, for going and watching Human Nature. So,
yep.
It should still be on your
I
list.
still haven't watched that yet.
You haven't watched it yet, but...
Nope.
All right. Good. Okay,
I was
so...
busy driving.
driving. It's all good. Yeah. All right. How about topics? What'd you bring me tonight?
So I got to quickly hit the first one. So, what is it? Hashtag I am McAfee.
Yeah.
I work for McAfee, but McAfee published a report titled "The Hidden Costs of Cybercrime," and it's just an aggregate of all the different ways that cybercrime costs the economy money. And I don't need to spend a whole lot. I mean, it's got stats and data and a bunch of interesting things in it. Mostly just wanted to let people know they can read it. But the highlight is we estimate the monetary loss from cybercrime at approximately $945 billion added to the global spending on cybersecurity, which is expected to exceed $145 billion in 2020, today, this is a $1 trillion drag on the global economy. So a lot of details in the hidden costs of cybercrime. If you're interested, I would scroll through that. We can post the link.
Wow.
Non-trivial. And then the second article that I saw was almost kind of something fun, but it was some academics at an Israeli university published new research today detailing a technique to convert a RAM card, so your memory card in your computer, into an impromptu wireless emitter and transmit sensitive data from inside a non-networked, air-gapped computer that has no Wi-Fi card.
What?
I know. So you have to kind of read through the whole thing and how they do it. Not that it's going to be incredibly useful, because the data leak speeds were only 100 bits per second, and the device you were leaking to was within several meters. So it is truly just an academic exercise. You and me, and generally anyone, they really have, there's no fear of RAM magically all of a sudden leaking your passwords to your neighbor, 2 houses over, or in the apartment next door kind of thing. But it was just yet another fascinating article. And this is the same group. I think we probably talked about some of the things they've done before. So the article, what I really wanted to mention was this, they call AirFi, joins a long list of covert data exfiltration channels covered by this researcher and his team at the university. And what's really interesting is just the various things that they have been using to try to exfiltrate data from air-gap systems. So there's LED-It-Go, LED-It-Go, which can exfiltrate data from an air-gap system via a hard disk activity LED.
I remember that.
USB, BEE, for you there, John, with your B's.
Yeah, thank you.
Force, a USB's connector data bus to give out electromagnetic emissions that can be used to exfiltrate data.
That seems very similar to this one.
Mm-hmm. Same thing, this one, air hopper, using a GPU card to emit electromagnetic signals. Steal data from air-gap PCs using sounds emanated by the computer's GPU fan. Use controlled read-write hard disk operations to steal data via sound waves. Exfiltrate data from non-network computers using heat emanations. Anyways, there's a whole list of various things that, they've been doing. Just very weird. How can I make the computer do something to transmit bits somehow? And they're all these very esoteric, very high, nobody needs to worry about these, except maybe somebody with a lot of money and a lot of patience on the other end. You need to be worth a lot of money, and someone needs to have a lot of patience, especially if it's only transmitting at 100 bits per second. That's
but if what you're looking for is a private key or something like that, that's still not that many seconds.
Nope. So,
wow.
Anyways, I just thought these were amazing. It was yet another academic exercise for something which generates the exact reaction you started with. What?
Yeah. So this is the quote in here that Geary showed that perfectly timed read-write operations to a computer's RAM card can make the card's memory bus emit electromagnetic waves consistent with a weak Wi-Fi signal. Because they just basically need to get it to emit EM in the 2400 gigahertz range.
Yep.
And then that signal can be picked up by anything with a Wi-Fi antenna in proximity of the air-gap system.
Good times.
That is.
So it's almost a something amazing. Fun project. But go read the article, and there's links to all those other ones that I mentioned. Control Alt LED, steal data from air-gap systems using keyboard LEDs. Just crazy stuff.
or
Mostly
screen brightness variations.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
You,
All
I'm
right.
sure, have something more interesting or
well,
useful.
I mean, again, kind of like, so last week I said, hey, we have to talk about the Fireeye thing. This is almost follow-up for that, because it was not just Fireeye. So Fireeye was, let's say, the first, or at least, and I don't know that Fireeye has come out and said, hey, by the way, we were hit by Solarwinds, but there's the first link I'll put in here is to the article on Krebs. And let's see, the quote here is...
Yeah, I see it. Fireeye didn't explicitly say its own intrusion was the result of the SolarWinds hack, but the company confirmed as much to Krebs on security earlier today.
Exactly.
I stole your thunder, but
no, that's totally good. So the thing is that it is a network management software firm, Solarwinds, which had malicious code injected in one of their updates that was pushed to up to 18,000 of their customers, including many government agencies. So the big thing about this is it's what is known as a supply chain attack, essentially. The code wasn't injected afterwards. It was injected in somewhere before the signing process, because the DLLs are signed appropriately. So that means that the code was checked in, code was modified prior to signing, which means that from a security software standpoint, assuming that it's signed with a trusted key, that will generally cause security software tools to say, okay, no, this is legitimate. I should let it go. So
yep.
Let's see. I pulled out a bunch of stuff. So the first article, like I said, I'll put in here as Krebs, but so it says, the initial breach disclosure from SolarWinds came 5 days after cybersecurity incident response firm Fireeye announced it had suffered an intrusion that resulted in the theft of its tools. And then on December 13th, so we're recording this on the 16th, so this was on Monday. Sunday. Fireeye published a detailed write-up on the malware infrastructure used in the SolarWinds compromise, and presented evidence it was first compromised back in March. So that Sunday also, the news broke that the Department of Commerce and the U.S. Treasury Department were compromised. And then the next day, Department of Homeland Security also announced. And then the CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, took the unusual step of issuing an emergency directive ordering all federal agencies to immediately disconnect the affected Orion products from their networks. Orion's the product name from SolarWinds, the company. So there's still fallout for this. I think we're still learning things even today. So this is an ongoing thing. Might wind up with some follow up next week, but a couple other things about this. Microsoft has been able to take over the domain name avsvmcloud.com that was used by the hackers to communicate with command and control. So the expectation is that Microsoft will be able to see traffic that's attempting to go to those sites, which would mean, there'd be an indication that those companies are potentially compromised. So that will be, one way of kind of tracking that down. So it's pretty crazy. Because I don't think we know the 10th of who's been compromised yet. And the update was still available for download on the website as late as Tuesday. I think it was yesterday, which is sorry, I don't have that in front of me, but it was it was still available for download until very recently. So the other I pulled another couple things from the Fireeye blog, which has a ton of info about, tactics, techniques, and indicators that you could use to try and detect it. But the one thing that I saw there, but I didn't see anywhere else, was that it uses steganography, kind of follow up from last week, to try and hide its traffic to the CNC. So it basically tries to make the response bodies look like benign XML, but the data is actually inside GUID strings. So you there's a regex in the Fireeye article that basically is how to find a GUID, and then you concatenate those strings together, and they're what does it say? It says command is spread across multiple strings disguised as GUID and hex strings. All matched substrings are filtered for non-hex characters, joined together, and then hex decoded. The first D word value shows the size, and then the message with potential junk bytes. So this is just another means of attempting to prevent the traffic from being detected as quote unquote CNC traffic. Let's see. There was a couple other points I pulled out of a different article. Sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place here. This is like one thing, but I didn't find everything in one article. So this Hacker News article came out on December 16th, so today, Wednesday, as we're recording this at least. And the couple facts in here that are interesting, like I said, this is still we're learning things even today. The first version containing the actual malware was traced back to April release, 2019.4.5200, blah, blah, blah. But Reversing Labs found an earlier version released in October of 2019 that included basically a harmless modification that acted, they're saying, as the stepping stone for delivering the real attack. So basically, the speculation is that somehow the attackers added an innocuous function to the software just to see if they could get away with it. And it's basically, a little function that says is 64-bit operating system, and it return environment.is64-bit operating. That's all it is. It was nothing major. But, testing out, if we do this, can we get it all the way through? And then will it get signed and shipped? Sure will. So then, they clearly put the real malicious software in later. And then as a second fact, and this isn't clear that this is how the software got in, but there was another security researcher who said that he notified the company of a publicly accessible GitHub repository that had the FTP credentials for the company's download website in plain text. So, essentially that would allow somebody to log in and add files to their download website. And then depending on how things get downloaded, it's possible they could get downloaded and executed if they're not validated, etc. So, generally, I would think that the signing process in a company that wouldn't expose you to the ability to get software in prior to having the binaries signed. But again, we don't know at the moment. And then the the final comment, I guess, on this thing is that just in order to make matters worse, they had a support advisory. And more companies have this. Lots of companies have this. But they had a support advisory that said how to disable AV scanning of their binaries. So even now that we know what's going on. And, company like McAfee, other companies have added detections for these compromised binaries. And, if you're a McAfee customer, for example, you would presumably be protected at this point. But not if there's an exclusion, because the whole reason for exclusions are to prevent security software from touching things, often for, internally developed tools or things like that. But they have, let's see, to make matters worse, malicious code added to an Orion software update may have gone unnoticed by antivirus software and other security tools on targeted systems, owing to SolarWinds' own support advisory, which states its products may not work properly unless their file directories are exempted from AV scans and group policy object restrictions. So everybody wants an exception, and that's that can be really problematic, especially in a situation like this. So maybe for years you would have had the restrictions or the exceptions in place, and the software was fine. But then when it's compromised, now they're getting in the way of being able to let you clean it up. So anyway, something to know. So anyway, this is the biggest ongoing story this week, I think. Certainly the biggest that I've seen, and something to kind of keep our eyes on for the next week too, because it's gonna keep on. Like I said, I think this is completely John's speculation than anything else, but I have a hard time believing that out of the 18,000 companies that are potentially, impacted, that more won't be having to disclose that they are potentially impacted. And I'm sure that security teams around the world have been scrambling frantically to figure out if they're running the compromised version. And the thing about a supply chain thing like this, with legitimate, authentic, signed code, if you're good about keeping up on your patches, something that we say all the time, that you're the one most likely to be affected by this. So this is particularly egregious in that respect. So there you go. There you go.
With that, let's talk about goats.
I like goats. I put goats in my photo book. All right. I did not read this article yet because I thought it would be...
I was going to say, I didn't know that this was a thing, but apparently there is a math problem that has been impossible to solve. Now, basically think of it this way. You have a circular fence that encloses exactly 1 acre of grass. You have a rope, and you have a goat. And if you tie one end of the rope to the goat and one end of the rope to some point on the inside of that circle fence, how long does the rope need to be so that the goat will be able to eat exactly half of the acre? Which, to me, that does not sound like a centuries-old mathematical problem that's been impossible to solve exactly.
That does not sound like to me either.
But apparently this problem has been something that mathematicians have been pondering for over 270 years. It first popped up in 1748, was published in a London-based periodical, The Lady's Diary or The Woman's Almanac. And let's see, then later on, so they had, people had solved it, but they didn't solve it exactly. It was an estimate, because the answer was something along the lines of x squared minus 2 equals 0 to derive the approximate answer of, x to the square root of 2. So things that can go big. Apparently the problem reemerged again in 1894 in an issue of American Mathematical Monthly. I subscribe still. I'm sure you do too, John.
Oh, absolutely.
And then there are pictures. So if you tie the goat here and you graze, how do you solve it? And then in 1998, A Naval Academy mathematician expanded on the problem, but everybody apparently has only been getting estimates, because when you're dealing with circles and radius and pi r squared, how many digits does pi have again?
I have a T-shirt that says my password is the last 12 digits of pi.
If you like math, you can read through this. It's got a lot of math and how you work the equation. But apparently, this guy Ingo Olzich, I can't say his name, has reached the exact solution for the goat grazing problem by applying a branch of math known as complex analysis. Those just seem like two very common words that someone squished together and said, we're going to call this complex analysis.
I guess there might be simple analysis and then complex analysis. Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, if you ever wanted to try to solve the problem, take a stab at, an acre of grass. How long does the rope need to be on the inside for the goat to eat exactly half? You now can get an exact number.
Wow.
That's my something fun.
Okay.
Goats. All right.
Okay. I kind of have two fun things. The first one is a Smithsonian magazine. So this is a relatively short one, but it is researchers have measured the heart rate of a wild blue whale for the first time. So
are there blue whales in captivity?
I'm going to go with yes, based on the statement in here that said...
Because blue whales are huge.
Yeah, but there was a statement in here that says... Oh, come on. Let's see. Unlike captive whales. Oh. So it doesn't actually say unlike captive blue whales. It says, unlike captive whales, which the sensor was tested on, wild blue whales don't turn belly up, especially in the presence of humans. I don't know. Maybe they want you to scratch their belly? I don't... I don't know. I know. Okay, but I don't know. So sorry, I don't know. The answer to your question is I don't know if there are captive blue whales. I don't know where you would keep them, and I hope that is not the case. But
I don't either.
But the point of this is, in order to attach it, they had to figure out how to get it to stick to the whale's skin using suction cups. But the blue whales have, it says, accordion-like skin that stretches and will pop the suction cup tags off, and it has to get to the right spot on the whale so that it can actually hear the heartbeat. But they managed to do it, and it says the sensor stayed attached to the whale for 8.5 hours while the whale dove and surfaced dozens of times looking for krill, and then once it fell off, it floated to the surface of Monterey Bay, and the team collected it. So, but the crazy thing is the data showed at the lowest point of its dive, the whale's heartbeat slows to an average of 4 to 8 beats per minute, and sometimes as low as 2 beats per minute.
That's crazy sauce.
Isn't that amazing? And then when it begins lunging and feeding underwater, its heart rate increases. When it surfaced, the heartbeat ramped up to 25 to 37 beats per minute as it took in fresh oxygen. So that's like, an order of magnitude of, between heart rate. That would be as if our heart rate, if your heart rate could go from like 50 beats a minute to 500, be crazy.
Dead.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's my first something fun. And then my second something fun. Thank you for the Threadreader app. I should actually look at the Threadreader app link. My second something fun is about economics. So I think that people should go and read this thread from an economist, clearly British, because all of his things are about in pounds and Bank of England. But this is, people don't understand how money works, and they think that taxes and inflation are more complicated than it really is. And this is an economist. He says it took him 40 minutes to write and 40 years to understand. But the basics of this, what I'll say on the podcast, but I would really encourage people to go and read this, is, we need to stop thinking of governments, at least sovereign governments that have their own currency, as being akin to household finances, because they're not in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
When you pay taxes, the government does not use the money that you pay in taxes in order to pay the bills. In fact, the exact opposite is the case. The government spending is what makes all money float. And the taxes are just a way of reducing the amount of money in circulation. And taxes are to control inflation, but they're not for spending. So the implications of this, if we could get it through to people across the world and across the country, are massive, because it really is a different way of thinking about what government's purpose is and how government finance works. So I won't do it justice, but I would just love it if everybody went and read and understood this. So,
yeah, I'm going to have to read it again a couple of times, just because, when I read through it, I just read through it while you were prepping tonight. And on the surface, I'm like, oh, okay. But that goes against pretty much everything I think I've been taught since, grade school about tax and spend and what you see in the news. It makes sense, but it's going to take a while to internalize it. Correct.
There's some important things in here just a couple of the final finding, or the takeaways. So he has a number of takeaways. He have too many takeaways because there's 14 of them. But government underpins the value of money, nothing else. Because the important thing is money is just a promise to pay. It's a promise to pay whatever the value is. And, government backs the promise to pay. It backs banks by the depository insurance, and it backs people who have more money than the banks can lend, and banks to save in treasuries. Treasuries are not debt. Treasuries are other people's money that we're guaranteeing. So the another one is that spend comes before tax, always, always, and the government always spends its money, not taxpayers. Tax does not fund government spending. Tax is used to control inflation, redistribute income, and reorganize the economy, but never to fund spending. It's true in any country with its own central bank and currency, and that never uses another country's currency. So anyway, this is probably one of the single most important things, that if we could get people to realize and understand, that it would make so many people's lives better. So anyway, this is my something fun, and maybe a little bit of a bully pulpit for the week. So it's a great thread, though. Read it, and then read it again. So,
all right. Anyway. Well, what are we going to talk about for 8 more minutes?
We can ask people to go give us ratings, though, because that would be lovely.
Yep. Yes, please.
Still don't know how to give a nice link to make that easy, but sorry.
I don't either.
Sorry. If anybody does, send us a DM on Twitter or something. Okay.
Let us know. All right.
All right, Eric. Have a good rest of your week.
Yep. Have a good night, John.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Bye.